and welcome back, everybody, to The Student's Opinion. Today, we are here for the fifth episode, The American Dream. Today's episode is special because we have with us not one, but two guests, Neve and Vaibhav. They are here today to talk about the American system of education. Vaibhav and Neve, could you please introduce yourselves to our audience?
Hey guys, my name is Vaibhav. I'm a student. I live in California. My hobbies include streaming and playing video games.
Hi, I'm Neve, and I'm also a student in California, and I'm in 12th grade.
Cool. Thank you for those brief introductions, guys. So now let's jump right into the episode. First, if you don't mind, can we talk about the years before high school, right? How does the American system build you up for the 4 crucial years of high school?
So that's actually a really interesting point. I actually studied under a private school until about 3rd grade, which is when I moved to America's public system of education. And one of the biggest things I noticed is that over time, they don't really prepare you too much for high school because I don't really know if it's based off of the specific schools that I visited, but we often didn't get much coursework. Sometimes we didn't get any at all, and stuff like that. But education-wise, they weren't trying to push us,
So was this in the private school or in the public school or both?
This was in the public schools. The private schools, they kind of work off of a different thing, right? So you're actually giving the schools money, so they actually, have to teach you, give you your money's worth. But the public schooling system did not prepare me that well for high school, no.
So before high school, we are not really prepared very much because the rigor of our classes is simply not very high compared to high school, and also I don't think that people are ever taught the importance of doing certain things that you need to start doing at the beginning of high school, such as exploring your interests and being involved in a certain amount of things. As a result, a lot of people, myself included, kind of started off high school not knowing the importance and types of preparation, and therefore having to learn a little bit later than would have been ideal about what we need to do to be successful in high school.
So that seems to be a general trend in public schools. So Vaibhav, could you expand a bit more on private schools and how they help you before high school?
I can tell you whatever I remember. Keep in mind that this was from K to 2nd grade, but from what I can remember, they put a large emphasis on learning, basic motor skills. For example, I don't know, people don't use it that often, but one of the things that I found was really interesting was that they expected you to know cursive at a very, very young age, or they expected you to memorize timetables for math and stuff like that. And I feel like if I were to continue the path of private school from 2nd grade to maybe even 8th grade, right? And I actually start public school in high school. The thing is, I would know so much already because they just teach at a very accelerated pace than what public schools teach. So I feel like I would have actually benefited a lot from that.
That's interesting. So now, is there a particular curriculum that private schools follow which is different from public schools? Is there a nationalized curriculum for the public schools, or is it just each school decides what it wants to teach?
So as far as I know, public schools have a certain set of requirements from the government that they actually have to teach for each subject. And those are in forms of codes. I forgot exactly how they're written or how they're displayed. But in every textbook, you can see that, this specific unit satisfies this requirement for learning. I'm not sure exactly what private schools do, but as far as I know, public schools use that method to teach the curriculum to students.
Right. That's really interesting to hear. So, once you completed your private school, when you moved into high school, could you go into detail about how high school life is for you, even presently, even now?
So that's a really good question. When I went from middle school to high school, one of the biggest things I noticed was that there was a lot of emphasis on, coursework. So I actually ended up having to learn the hard way, how to time manage and stuff like that. Because at the beginning of the year, so freshman year, so ninth grade, it was relatively easy because I had easy classes. The math class was very simple, easy to understand. And then sophomore year came, and I had classes like chemistry honors, and anybody who knows me knows that I absolutely loathe chemistry. So that was a very tough class, and I had pre-calculus as well. So the coursework kind of just exponentially increased like by so much, and I was not prepared for that at all. So um, that's how I turned into a procrastinator. But I will say that it took a while, but now that I'm in senior year, I kind of have an idea of how to run things. I would have liked it if I knew how to do all this stuff in freshman year, but regarding academics, I would say that yeah, it's been a pretty rough journey, but I grew, I learned past, and I'm here today.
And also, I think one thing that makes high school even harder is that, the first year of high school, ninth grade, it tends to be very, very easy. At least in our school, it was. Like, even compared to eighth grade, I feel like it was easy. I feel like eighth grade was harder than ninth. And I think that that kind of gives us a little bit of like a false impression about how the rest of high school is going to be. And the jump from ninth to 10th grade is pretty significant due to that. Because in freshman year, the majority of us were not taking like any advanced classes. At the most, we were like 1 year ahead in math, or in my case, I was like 1 year ahead in Spanish. But apart from that, we didn't have anything advanced. There weren't any AP classes or honors classes at that time for the majority of us. And most of us didn't have the option to take those. So as a result, we ended up with a relatively easy year, which was just not good preparation for the what was to come.
And I think a very big cause of why that jump was hard could also be classified under, like, struggles during COVID, because during COVID, I noticed like my willingness to do school, my motivation, you could say, was dropping very significantly. And I'd say around halfway through sophomore year, I had some other family related issues, and so I just like kind of stopped wanting to do school that much. So that was like a huge struggle. I was able to recover. Junior year was way better than sophomore year for me, but that jump kind of just felt so much more higher because of the fact that we were going through the global pandemic and such.
Yeah, and just for context, because I know that it was different depending on your state and country, what your policies were. In our school, we had our entire 10th grade year online, as well as the end of our ninth grade year. So, due to that, we probably had a little bit of a different experience. The coursework was still pretty hard in 10th grade. It's not like we got an easy version. And in fact, it may even have been harder than normal because it was online.
I will say though, our school did offer hybrid learning near the end of the school year, which is what I took. I could not bear social distancing. So we are actually allowed for, I think, the last 2, 3 months of school to go in person if we wanted to. And that like actually made a huge impact because, I actually met my friends. I had fun.
Yeah, that I can understand as well. Hybrid learning or even just online learning itself was extremely difficult for students to cope with since it was something that we'd never experienced before. So, yeah, it must have been hard times.
Yeah, I completely agree as well on that perspective. So, both of you want a harder primary and middle school curriculum to prepare you for high school. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And what would you recommend that there be in primary and middle school to better prepare you for high school?
I think it was just a matter of my teachers in elementary school. So when I went to public school in for third, fourth, and fifth grade, I feel like, especially my fourth, fifth teacher, I had the same teacher for fourth and fifth grade. She was not a good teacher at all. So yeah, we were learning division in fourth grade, and that was the thing we were taught in third grade, which I thought was really, really weird because, not only did I already know all this stuff, I found it very, very, like it was easy, but I also felt like I wasn't being challenged enough. At that time, I was kind of immature, so I wasn't complaining, but I could see how that definitely spiraled into a much bigger snowball, and I wasn't able to, properly learn what I needed to learn so that I could be prepared for middle school, which was, also relatively simple. Um, my sixth grade teacher was also really, really bad. He taught us fractions in sixth grade. And yeah, I didn't learn anything that year. And then seventh and eighth grade were like, really easy for me. So I feel like if we had better teachers, this stuff wouldn't be a problem at all.
Right. I had a question. Now, while you were talking about high school, you mentioned about AP and other advanced classes that you had done. Could you perhaps elaborate a bit more about?
Well, basically, the AP classes they're designed to be college level classes, and as a result, we're actually able to get college credit for them if we do well enough. And there's an AP exam at the end of the year for each class, which is to demonstrate our knowledge and prove that we are proficient in it in return for possibly getting college credit later on. And one thing that's good about these classes is they give you a more challenging experience if you're finding the on level courses too easy. They give you a taste of what your college academics will be like. And it's a good way to have a little bit more of a detailed look into certain subjects that you are particularly interested in. And the other good thing is there's also some level of standardization between them. So, like, you're less likely to be surprised by things because there's a set amount of topics that are going to be covered in that one. Teachers do have some freedom to, like, include other things in there that aren't part of the AP curriculum, but the things that are in the curriculum do need to be covered in order to prepare you for the exam. So overall, they are pretty challenging because they are designed as college level courses. But as long as you pick ones you are interested in and know that you can handle, they can be a great way to do some further exploration into your favorite subjects.
I will say, one thing is that in order to teach an AP course, you need a credential. So like teachers actually need to be able to teach, right? So this is AP curriculum, make sure that those teachers are able to teach the course. So anybody who is teaching an AP course, you can trust that they're certified to do that.
Regarding AP classes, you said that you take a standardized exam at the end of the year. So, how much of the course is actually devoted towards just passing that exam versus learning the college material?
I think that one really just depends on the teacher because so far my experience with AP courses have been positive. The teachers who teach me, I feel like, especially like for example, my last year's calculus AB teacher, she was really, really nice. And whenever she would teach like course content, it felt like she genuinely wanted us to learn the course material. So I feel like that would honestly be up to the teacher, whether they want to just get that information in our head or whether they genuinely want us to learn what's going on or develop an interest for that specific subject.
I would say that they are more exam focused because the whole purpose of the AP class is to prepare you for the exam. And in the end, that exam is what determines whether you get credit for it in college or not. So, depending on how the teacher chooses to teach it, there can be a broader focus, which also includes more things that are just helpful to learning and understanding the subject. but some teachers will choose to make the class just solely focused on exam prep. So that's kind of up to the teacher.
One question for that, if you don't mind me asking, is what do you think? Do you think the teachers that you've learned, like you're taking your AP courses, right? So the teachers for those classes, do you feel like they genuinely want you to learn the course content, or do you feel like they're just like throwing the information at you and expecting you to memorize it for the AP test? Because I feel like this question is kind of based on perspective of what do you perceive as, exam prep or just learning course content.
Well, in some of the AP classes, like we've just done a lot of like practice questions, and like the practice questions are like often directly taken from old AP exams. So those would just like qualify as prep. I think what's good though is in some of like the science stuff. So like in AP physics, we've been doing like labs, which are another way to like those of course do not connect directly to the exam, I suppose. I mean, there are some questions concerning labs on there, but it's a bit of a hands-on way to see the concepts in action. So I feel like stuff like that is wouldn't really count as exam prep, but it's just extra stuff to help our us learn this stuff. So yeah, overall, like it's really hard to pinpoint what qualifies as exam prep and not, but it is helpful to have things besides the bare minimum required to prepare for the exam.
That's really interesting to hear. So I had a question. In general, are all APs are of the same level, or are some of them easier than the others?
There can actually be quite a difference in the levels of different AP classes. And some of this just depends on the teacher and how they choose to teach the class. But I think there are some APs that are kind of universally known to be some of the harder ones. I think in particular, like AP Physics and then like AP Calc BC are ones that are known to be pretty difficult. But and then some such as AP Comp Sci, AP Environmental Science, AP Psychology, those are known as a little bit easier. But of course, these are just like generalizations. Some of it also depends on which classes you individually are able to succeed in the most. Because a lot of this is just personal strengths and weaknesses, as well as how the teacher teaches it. So it really depends. And I think that it's important for people to not make the mistake of underestimating the difficulty of any AP class. Even if something is supposedly easy, there's always going to be people who will still struggle in it because it's just not their thing or the way it's taught doesn't suit them, and you don't know that could be you.
Another point for clarification. So AP courses function in a way that there's some subjects that have two levels of it. For example, calculus. I mentioned AB and she mentioned BC. So calculus AB is the first level of college calculus that you can take as an AP course. And so it goes from calculus AB to calculus BC. Similar thing happens with physics. It goes from physics 1 to AP physics 2 to AP physics C, and there's two levels of that. So there's multiple levels for some subjects, just not all of them.
So what you guys are trying to say is if you're choosing an AP class, you don't want to go by the numbers of how many people have actually passed the test in previous years, but then to look at the subject and see whether you as a person like the subject and if you would feel comfortable in that class.
Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like let's say you take calculus, right? But you're more into, let's say you're more into music than calculus. You're gonna find the course difficult if you're not interested in it. Again, interest is a huge thing because you need to have, you need to want to complete the class to actually do well in it. Because it's not only more fast paced. Like for example, AP Physics. What took on level physics courses? So like in junior year, right? You could take on level physics or AP Physics. So on level physics finished their first unit, kinematics, in 2.5 months. We finished it in I think about 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks. So you need to have that interest to make you want to keep going. So definitely don't look at the numbers. Just you want to take what's actually interesting for you so you can do well in the class.
Yeah, I wholly agree with that. Let's take the discussion forward now to extracurricular activities, if you don't mind, guys. So, what are the extracurricular activities and the opportunities available to students, say, starting from primary school all the way up to high school?
Um, the public school that I went to, I'm gonna start talking from public school because I have very few memories of private school. I don't want to, create any stereotypes or any generalizations about what private school feels like. But public school, I remember more clearly. We had after school enrichment classes or courses, which is basically you give money and then you do it depends on what activity you choose. You could go into art, you could go coding, stuff like that. So there's like activities that you kind of have to pay for, but it's like it's exactly an extracurricular. But that was pretty much the only thing you could do in primary school. In middle school, I went to a K through 8 for my sixth, seventh, eighth classes, and it was interesting because we had a lot more clubs than what I would say a normal middle school had because we were a fairly new school. So the community, the district, they all decided to put all of their efforts in to this one school. So we had like on Thursdays, every Thursday, we'd meet up and people would have clubs. Like there's like at least 20 to 30 different clubs, and we'd not just like chill out. There's a chess club, coding club, stuff like that. And then, of course, there were sports and after school enrichment. So you could take coding classes, you could take art. My sister's actually taking an art class right now at that same school. So yeah, my elementary, middle school experience was kind of different in the sense that we actually had a lot of these extracurricular activities. I was part of my school's math club. So that was another thing.
So, clubs depend largely on the school you go to. Is that correct?
Yeah, because the people who manage the school are basically deciding how they want to, treat their schedule or what they want to do. Actually, the school that I was a part of, my middle school, it's under new management, right? The principal left. She became the superintendent of our district. So they actually removed those Thursday club meetings. So now I don't think that exists anymore. So it largely depends on the school and the person who's managing it.
Oh, that's really interesting. So, what about outside of school? What are the extracurricular opportunities available there?
Well, I think a large thing that people do choose to do outside of school is probably sports, but either because they want to like do more than what is there in school, or they want to like do a sport that is not offered by their school. So that's definitely a big one. Apart from that, people will choose to do volunteer work outside of school, and they may just be in their own organizations. Some of them, like later on, will get jobs. Like most people do that in 11th or 12th grade, but it depends. So like there's a few options outside of school as well as in school.
So yeah, if we're talking about high school, it's a different story. When it comes to extracurriculars, you can get jobs. You can, some people start their own nonprofits. There's a lot of different things you can do because as a high schooler, you're basically an adult, but not really. So you can do a lot of things. I had a job last year under the goal of buying myself a new laptop, and I volunteered at my sister's like fall festival, their Halloween event. I volunteered at her math club. There's a lot of different things you can do. So I think it honestly depends on your interests, but yeah, at that point you're pretty much let go.
So, there are a lot of opportunities that are available. It's just up to the student to go and find the opportunities that they want to pursue.
Exactly. Yeah.
And with that, we conclude our fifth episode here on The Student's Opinion. This episode is exclusively available on Spotify for the first 2 days, after which it will be available on YouTube, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel to be notified when future episodes drop, and comment on what you thought of this episode. Also, check out Vaibhav's Twitch channel at twitch.tv/SpectraVJ. He streams a variety of games there over the weekends, and it's a lot of fun. If you have any questions, be sure to email us at contact.thestudentsopinion@gmail.com. For now, it is Medhaansh and I signing off.